Hey guys, Dishsoap here with the Set 10 headliner guide slash tier list. If you didn't know, Set 10's new sets mechanic is headliners. It's very similar to Chosen if you played in Set 4. And in this video, I'm going to be using both terms interchangeably. Because me personally, I'm used to just calling them Chosens, but they're also just easier to say than headliner. If I say Chosen, I mean headliner. And for rules of what they are, we have like these little guidelines. They are units that show up in your shop, and when you buy them, they already come like 2-starred. And they have an additional +1 to like the trait that's highlighted on the headliner itself. It's pretty obvious what that means in game, and each unit has its own unique headliner bonus. Usually these are just stat increases of like that unit's primary stat. They appear in every single shop when you do not have a headliner, and if you do already have a headliner, it'll appear 1 in 4 shops. You have to sell your headliner to get a new one. You can't have 2, and they take 3 units out of the pool. There's like this whole thing with pool and bag size. That's like kind of out of the scope for this video, but yeah. And have a small amount of bad luck protection. Honestly, I don't know exactly what this means. You won't see the same ones consecutively, but I don't know if there's like any really way to abuse this. And the last one is headliners for units with less than half of their total copies of the pool are not offered. That one's like a little bit of a mouthful. Basically what it means is that if more than half of the units like in a pool are gone, say for 4 costs, right now there's 10 4 costs in the pool. If there are 6 gone, 6 4 costs of a gone, you can't see that headliner. So see that if there's 6 Caitlyn's gone, spread out like throughout the entire game, no one can see a headliner Caitlyn. That's basically what that means. I'm sure I'm not the one that explains it best. I recommend just Googling it, going to some TFT website that explains it better. So for like the tier list itself, the way I have this spread out is that I'm not going to be like ranking these in a vacuum per se. Like obviously 1 cost are weaker than 5 costs, but I'm also not going to be considering like how well does a Chosen Corki do on level 8 or Chosen Corki 3 do on level 8. That's not really applicable to real game. The way I have it divided is basically like how much you should prio these units in a roll down when they're offered to you. So for example, what units do I prio when I'm rolling down on level 6 and level 7? What units I prio when I'm rolling on level 8? This one's level 9. Yeah, it should be obvious. I'll go through them like as I'm going through them, but basically it's kind of like a roll down tier list, but that's usually what's going to be most applicable in game. All right, for the 1 cost tier list, basically this is what I prio when I'm seeing my first couple of Chosens. Your first two Chosens are both going to be 1 cost. The best one right now I think is Kennen. He's just a little overtuned. He does insane damage. He's a Guardian for frontline. He's a 3 trait with Superfan. Gets a 3rd item. And he just does CC and insane damage. He just does everything. Evelyn as well. If you get like healing on her, she can kind of 1v9. Early game, KDA Chosen is better. But if you could actually reroll Evelyn 3 with Crowd Diver. I wouldn't reroll her with KDA Chosen though. And she's pretty decent because you can go to Crowd Diver, and that's pretty good. Corki, I think Corki's actually a fair bit better than the other 2, but I don't think he's close to Evelyn, so I have him here. He's basically just the best backline DPS you can get. I think his best Chosen is Big Shot, but if you already natural to Kaisa and you don't have like 8-bit, then 8-bit's fine as well. He just does the most DPS. He also anti-heals, which is kind of weird for a 1 cost, and he does AoE. AoE anti-heal for a 1 cost is kind of nice. Jinx is also here just for backline DPS. Rapid Fire is much better than Punk. Punk Chosen's probably in B tier, but she can hold your 80 items, she can hold your attack speed items, and you don't really feel bad about selling her later. Lilia A and well, just a good generic frontline. I think Superfan is pretty strong early mid-game, just worse than Kennen, worse than Evelyn. This just kind of shows how much I value the Superfan KDA opener over these other ones. This should change throughout the set, but that's where it is right now. Cassante in B tier. The weird thing about Heartsteel, like you might think that Heartsteel Cassante is like the super high roll of the set, like Chosen Tom Kinch was in set 4, Fortune Tom Kinch rather. The thing is though, Heartsteel is actually doesn't really scale that well in the early game. It's more something that gets more value later. So getting a Heartsteel Cassante early, it's nice. You might get a few extra gold out of it. Heartsteel is definitely something you can pivot into later. You don't really need the Cassante early, and he's just kind of a mid frontliner, but he's alright. He's in B tier, and he's in B tier as well. So you got a few nerfs. Like the whole Spellweaver line got a few nerfs like over this PB. She's a kind of mid. She's backline DPS, so if you get dropped a lot of frontline units, definitely consider buying her. Olaf in B as well. If you get like, I don't know, like a Ginsu Titans, he basically goes infinite, can't really lose, but any other scenario, he kind of sucks, like a lot. Falls off real fast. Vi in B as well. Vi also kind of sucks. Like Monster Chosen just says like in a vacuum without any traits, it's pretty decent compared to some of these other ones. Look the seller as soon as you get like a 2-cost, basically. Kenshin C, it's actually kind of surprising. When I first saw the set, I assumed Kench Chosen was going to be like insane. But the thing is, since he has the country tag, he's actually a lot weaker than past versions of Kench. I think his like damage reduction is like almost half of what it used to be in set 4. And also his headliner bonus is less than what the chosen bonus used to be, I think. But obviously, like if you get dropped a country unit out of a box, because they're all 2 and 3 cost, definitely consider buying country Kench. I also just think the Bruiser mid-game in general is just weaker compared to the other frontliners, so that's kind of why he's in C tier. I have Terrakin C as well. Disco's actually a pretty decent comp, but I don't really like it early. I don't think it's very good. Kennen is more tanky than him and does like 3 times his damage. Yasuo in C as well. He got Nerf to Oblivion. He can hold AD and healing items decently, but he's just way worse than Evelyn right now. Nami in C tier as well. I don't know. This Nava unit should be pretty good, but I just don't think her damage is good enough. So she's in C. I think she's just worse than the other backliners. But I don't know. If you have infinite frontline, you natural like a Shojin or something, she's for sure purchasable. Like I don't think any of these are not viable. Like I wouldn't skip. I wouldn't always skip any of these. That's why I don't have anything in D tier. This next one is kind of weird because it's not really like you're not really rolling that much for 1 and 2 costs chosens. You're usually rolling on level 6. So like this kind of takes into account seeing like an early 2 costs on stage 2 plus level 6 rolldowns, kinda. Like this is just kind of like meant to show like if you see one of these 2 cost chosens on level 5 and you have like how good is it versus your 1 cost one that you had before, if that makes sense. In S tier, I think these are pretty equal just depending on your items. It's Katarina and Senna. Both of them are just beasts of carries. They're both AP, but both can hold attack speed. Senna can also hold AD, kinda, but they are just monsters, do so much damage. Aphelios is a lot of damage as well, especially Heartsteel Aphelios, preparing for stage 3, rolling for 5 Heartsteel is really good. Garen's probably the best tank. His headliner bonus gives him like 400 HP or something, really insane. Gnar, very good as well, super fan. It's a free Sterix on him. 2-star Gnar with Mossure can just 1v9 sometimes. Bard and B as well. Honestly, this may be even an S. I'm just not very familiar with it. Bard's Chosen is very unique in the fact that like it's a scaling one. I think it's like basically he just starts farming like extra stacks of Dutes or whatever. I think that's what they're called every time he casts, and the Dutes just make him do more damage at the start of the fight. So it's something you want to hit early. I've seen Bard carry early go like 8th, and I've also seen it like top 2. Personally, I just don't really have any experience with it, so I put it in B. Kale is decent, definitely worse than Katarina and Senna, like as a backline DPS, and she kind of needs like her traits to do anything and items, but if you have that, she can be pretty strong. Jack's here as well. He's pretty decent. If you have healing on him, he can kind of go infinite. I think he's just kind of worse than Gnar in that aspect. Piatan here, just kind of a whatever tank. Guardian probably knocks him up to A tier. Punk, I don't know. I don't really value Punk in the mid game that much. Twitch here as well, just another mad backline DPS. Gragas, another whatever tank, but I mean better than the 1 cost tanks obviously. Seraphine here. Seraphine used to be, honestly, she's worse than Kaisa, but she used to be like Giga S tier, but they nerfed her so hard. But she's still like decent. She provides like a healing and small AoE. Kai'Sa, decent single target, but Ice, like honestly, Kai'Sa has like easy S tier potential. The problem is her dash AI is just as bad as the recon AI it used to be. She either dashes away from nothing, doesn't even dash away from the melee units, and also like she fires a projectile that can get blocked. Not a fan. She does good damage, but just those other factors kind of make her bad. And then just the 1 cost we already talked about. Corki, Evelyn, and Kennen can definitely hold their own. Say if you don't really have items for the 2 costs that you get, or they're too expensive, you definitely can just hold on to these. Say with these, but like these ones in D tier fall off hard. I would almost always, unless like you really need the trait for them, I would almost always just look to pivot off these into the whatever first 2 costs you see. This one is a rolling on 6/7 tier list. It's basically what I value when rolling on 6 and 7. I think Urgot is busted right now. He is just like a drain tank frontline bruiser, like he kind of always is. Just does a stupid amount of damage, really, really tanky. Riven's also good as well, really, really good. If you have the items, have the 8-bit set up, can reroll for her. She's definitely one of the best 3-cost rerolls. I think Urgot's semi rerolls a little bit better. Set's probably the best tank 3-cost right now. And his headliner, if you get him early, say on like a 3-2 roll down, his headliner gives him permanent HP every single time he dips below half health. So that can definitely be something. Like I've seen set 3s late game have like 6,000 HP, which is very, like, a lot. Definitely consider buying him. Samira here as well. I think Samira Urgot reroll is broken. I have Urgot ahead of her just because I think Urgot can go in like more comps, but she can just hold 80 items as well. A tier, MF, she's really good for holding 80 items. I think Samira is slightly better, but she's really good still. Ward, really solid tank. He has like this headliner ability where if you get him early and he kills people with his ability, he'll like stack up AP. Don't fall into the trap of trying to carry Mord and like stacking up infinite AP. It is not good. He is not a carry. He's a tank, sadly. Maybe in the future he can carry. But he's a good tank. He's a good tank. Nico's also another tank. The very interesting thing about Nico, since he's a superfan, the way superfan works is it gives an item to your headliner, and the item is always going to be the same thing every time for every single unit. I believe there's like a chart somewhere of every item for every single unit. I don't really memorize everything off the top of my head. But if you have Nico as your headliner specifically, and you have Superfan active, she'll give herself a Warmogs, which is insane because she's also a Guardian. Guardian gives you a shield based on your max HP, and if you have Warmogs on Guardian, your shield gets a lot better. So a lot of internal synergy with Nico makes her one of the best tanks as a headliner. Vex, probably the best AP 3-cost headliner right now. It used to be Lulu, but Lulu got nerfed. Also Executioner is just pretty strong with Samira. Echo and B tier. Echo used to be Giga S tier, but they basically nerfed his damage, like they like 1/3 of his damage, so now he's just a tank. Honestly, I probably wouldn't skip him. Like I wouldn't skip Echo to look for like Set more than Nico. Like if I need a tank, I would just buy Echo. Aphelios actually gets like better the later it goes, because like Hearthstone gets better the later it goes. But he's whatever still. Cat's still a menace, honestly. You can reroll Cat and she'll pop off. But if I'm rolling on like level 7, I'm most likely going to be looking for one of these units instead of a Cat. There are definitely times where I would consider buying her. Lulu and me as well. Honestly, she might deserve to be higher. I don't know. Recently, I haven't really found that much success carrying Lulu after she got like a pretty decent nerf recently. Lux, I think Lux reroll is pretty decent. Lux is like a mid-game carry is alright. The past few times I've played Lux, I've just been disappointed. I'm not really going to sit here and try to explain EDM in this video. That's kind of outside of the scope of it. It's a very complicated trait. But you basically play her with EDMs and have her as an AP carry. Yone and B as well. I think he's just way worse than Riven and Urgot as like frontline carry dudes. But say you like level to 7 on 3-5 and roll once and you have 80 items. You see a Yone chosen in your shop. You're buying the Yone. You're not going to grid for the other two. Just buy the Yone and sit. Senna's still here. Senna's still decent. But obviously just getting a 3-cost would be better. Mumu, sadly, is just way worse than the other tanks. I would definitely consider skipping a Mumu on level 7. You can buy him if you're rolling on level 6. I think he holds up to level 6. But if you're rolling on 7, I would definitely greed for one of the better tanks. He is quite bad at the moment. And the rest are just 2-cost. I don't really need to explain why these are lower than the other ones. And now we have the list for the level 8 roll down. It is considering 4 and 3 costs, and if you notice a theme, all the 4 costs are at the top and all the 3 costs are at the bottom. Note that this doesn't mean I think 3 costs are bad. I actually think 3 costs are amazing, but like if you're leveling to 8 and you don't have a 3-cost headliner already, what's the point? Like you're not gonna buy a 3-cost headliner. The reason you go 8 is to hit the 4-cost headliners, right? So that's kind of what this list is showing. Typically, if you're playing 3-cost reroll, you have already been rolling on 7 and already have your headliner. In S tier, for the first 3 slots, it's going to be the 3 like ubiquitous and super flex tanks. All 3 of these units can basically go into every comp. Ideally, their headliner effect is the generic one. So like Zac, Bruiser, Thresh, Guardian, and Blitz Sentinel. The other ones, like the other traits, can still obviously be good in certain spots. Zac provides like backline CC, I guess, and heals himself. Honestly, Zac's pretty similar to Thresh, kinda. Thresh also provides backline CC, kinda. I mean, he heals like largest clump within a smaller range of him. So often it hits mostly the front line, but it can also hit backline, and he also heals himself. And then Blitz is just a beefy boy with lots of resistances from Sentinel, and he gives himself a big shield and zaps people, but he's really, really tanky. So yeah, if you're rolling on level 8, and you see one of these, it's usually correct to just cop one of them, unless your front line's already insane. These aren't really in the particular order, it's just the, what I think are the premier 4 costs at the moment. Like TF, really, really good, probably the best AP user, really good with Blitz, and like Disco Stall with Dazzler. Disco Dazzler, like both are fine. I think KDA Akali, especially with the Executioner tag, is an amazing unit. Also an S. I think Karthus Chosen is also really, really good. Executioner is better than Pentakill in my opinion as well. Give him AP, he'll one-shot stuff. Him being a Chosen, I think he gives like 25 AP or something. Helps him hit those one-shot thresholds way easier. And I also have Zed here. I think a lot of people actually think Zed is bad. I think he's really good. He just needs like the right team and the right items. I wouldn't really play him if I didn't have Edge of Night and Healing. But if you have both of those, you for sure want to buy him on your roll down. Ari and A as well. If you have AP items, obviously just buy her. She's good. She's single targets, not AoE like TF, which is kind of a bummer, but I think KD is pretty solid as well. Ezreal and Caitlyn, they're just the like backline AD carries of the set. I think those units, I think they're just slightly weaker compared to the other stuff. They're still good, it's just at current balance, they're not as good as the other stuff. The problem with Caitlyn is that you need 8-bit stacks for her, and it's not very common to play 8-bit in the mid game, so that makes her awkward. And then Ezreal's a heart seal, so you're kind of down one of his traits. If you don't hit big shots chosen, like as his headliner, I guess, it's gonna be awkward to utilize his traits. Viego is kind of another melee carry. You can use the Edge of Night, Titans, healing stuff. I think he is worse than KDA, Akali, and Zed. And then we have True Damage Akali. Vertical True Damage is pretty bad. The reason I have, if you didn't know, Akali can be True Damage and KDA. And if you don't have any of the traits active, like if you don't have KDA active, if you don't have True Damage active, the default one I believe is KDA. But if you have True Damage active and you see the True Damage specific headliner, I probably wouldn't buy it. I don't really think investing into Vertical True Damage is that good unless you have like spats and stuff. So definitely more niche. But if you get Executioner Akali, obviously, it's pretty good. You can just make her into a KDA, right? In the same unit. And then the only forecast in C tier is going to be Poppy. The only time I would consider buying this is if I'm going level 8 on 4-2, and I roll once, I see a Poppy, I need frontline, I'll buy her, then I'll stop rolling. That's basically the only scenario. If I have enough gold to continue rolling, and I have like other pairs and stuff that I want to hit on level 8, I'm probably not going to buy a Poppy. I'm going to be looking for the Zac, the Thresh, the Blitz. Units that actually are more tanky than her and provide CC. So yeah, I don't think it's worth going over all the 3 costs again. You'll buy them if you need, like if they can hold the items that you have, or if you need like frontline or something, but they're just stopgaps until you get to the 4 costs on level 8. And now the level 9 roll down list. Like expected, legendaries at the top. There are scenarios where all of the legendaries have, like it's correct to take all of them in some spots. I don't think they're ever strictly better than one another, but just generically, Alawi is usually the best. She's just so much frontline, decent amount of damage, really good utility. And also her, like, getting her 2-star is just insane off of headliner. Lucian's probably the best AD carry. Jhin is decent enough, but he's just worse than Lucian. Also, both of his headliner traits are like really, really good late game, because either you're getting +1 Jazz, which is one of the best ways to cap out your board, or you get +1 rapid fire. And since he's a Jazz, that means you don't have to play like a dead rapid fire on your board, which is really nice. Yorick is just a monster. I will say though, if you don't have items for him, doesn't do anything, but if you're not itemizing your 2-star headliner, I don't know what you're doing. He summons a bunch of ghouls, and then his second cast, he summons a big-ass ghoul, and he does a bunch of damage, shreds armor, is a guardian, very good unit. Ziggs is like AP nuke champion that also provides a lot of utility because he shreds magic, and he gives mana and attack speed to teammates with the hyper pop trait. Sona is really good as well. After the balance changes, I think the best Sona is damage Sona. If you get a chosen headliner Sona, it's almost always correct to do damage. If you don't have headliner Sona, I would consider other stuff like attack speed. I think attack speed is the best one for if you don't have items on Sona. And then heal. I'm not really sure when you're supposed to use heal. I think heal got nerfed too hard compared to the other ones, but I think damage and attack speed are decent. In A tier, we have the ubiquitous tanks. Like if you don't have replacements to these units, and you see like a Ziggs 2 or like a Lucian 2, it's sometimes even correct to not even buy like a Ziggs 2, like the headliner Ziggs or headliner Lucian, because your frontline will get too weak. We have Jhin in A and not S. I think he's really, really slow. They nerfed him to like 60 mana, so it made blue buff and Shojin like really bad on him. So he's just really slow. If someone plays a burst comp into your Jhin board, you're not gonna have a fun time. Kayn also in A as well. I think he's just worse than all of these other units, but if you hit a headliner Kayn like really early, say you level to 9 on like 5-2, roll once, hit a chosen Kayn, buy him, he'll farm you like infinite gold for the rest of stage 5. These are just the 4 cost carries. You're not really gonna be buying them unless like very niche scenarios. And then Kiana's headliner actually does have like, is actually pretty decent. Gives her like scaling AD, but it's a lot of scaling. I've actually heard really good things about it, but whenever I try to play it in game, it does not impress me, and I would rather just have one of these. So I put her in B personally, and then not really worth talking about the rest. Those are just the units. The rest of this video will just be a guide on like how to navigate the headliner system. So I know most people are just here for the tier list, but I would definitely recommend staying around and listening to what I have to say. Since I kind of suck at like this whole YouTube guide thing, and I'm just kind of like going a little bit off script, just kind of riffing it. I'm just gonna go over this Twitter thread I wrote a couple of days ago about like things in Set 10 that are important for climbing, but basically all of them are just stuff to deal with the headliner mechanic, so it for sure just fits in this video, and I'll read through it and then I'll show a game where a lot of these concepts are used. First tip is to buy headliners that fill holes in your board. So I gave the example that's usually better to buy a frontline headliner instead of a Caitlyn headliner if you already have a Caitlyn pair. You can kind of see that in the tier list. I have the frontline headliners really, really high, and it just kind of makes sense. Like it's easier to find one Caitlyn and one Zach chosen than it is to find 3 Zachs and 1 Caitlyn, because then I'm not explaining it well, but like just trust. Just try to fill in units that you missed. You might be like baited, like especially if you already have like an upgraded 4 cost, you might be baited to like take the chosen 4 cost because it's like a quote unquote upgrade. But I don't know. I feel like you would rather just take something that you're lacking at the moment than just making something slightly better. Like for example, a Kali headliner gives her 150 HP and some attack speed. That's not that much of an upgrade compared to just having a normal Akali. And then second, I said at the same time, don't be greedy with which headliner you buy. When rolling down, you should be willing to purchase 3 to 5 headliners, like the units, not even considering the traits. And the example I gave is that it's completely fine to buy headliner Zach when playing disco. Kind of went over it in the tier list. Pretty self-explanatory. And third is that you shouldn't tunnel on getting a specific trait headliner. And that in general, the traits this set are just kind of bad. It is what it is. I mean, a lot of people are going to be kind of upset about it. They'll be asking for buffs to these traits. I think it's fine. They're meaning to like have you like flex in a bunch of different traits at the same time, and just playing high quality units. So stuff like 5 Pentakill, 5 KDA, 5 Spellweaver, and even like a lot of the 7 traits are just pretty weak compared to the value you get from like the first or like the prismatic levels. And that most of the headliner values in getting the tier star, and don't keep your like low cost headliners that give a specific trait, like don't keep a Gnar the whole game for 7 penta. It's not worth it. And then 4, most of the time look to upgrade your headliner after leveling to 7, 8, and 9. That's kind of what I made the tier list over. 6, 7, 8, or 8, 9. Yeah, it's extremely efficient to roll with guaranteed headliners every shop. So what that means is that in previous sets, often you actually ended up not rolling on, say, like 3-2 or 3-5 in level 7, just because it's not very efficient. If you're looking for like a 3-cost 2-star carry or like a 2-cost 2-star carry on 3-2, you're gonna have to find 3 of a unit. If you're guaranteed a 2-star of one of those levels every single shop, you only have to roll once, which makes it way more efficient. So like leveling at all stages of the game is going to be way more likely, way more common, way better than it is in previous sets. So don't ignore that. Once most people realize this, if you try to just get by with your early game headliner, you're going to fall really, really far behind in tempo. Don't fall into the trap of just trying to AFK till 8. You might be tempted to do that. Say like you're trying to play disco, you get an early Nami, you're like, oh, bet. I'm going to give this guy AP so I can upgrade to TF later. And then I'll just AFK till 8 on 4-2 or 4-5. I'll sell my Nami roll for the TF. Like, okay, like maybe that'll work in like bronze or whatever. But if you're looking to get better at the game, that's not going to work. People are going to be rolling, hitting their 2-cost, their 3-cost, and kind of it's going to be better than your Nami. So you need to be keeping strength with the lobby. And then for early game, this is specific to like stage 1. It's often correct to buy either your 1-3 or 1-4 headliner because it can show you what augment you're meant to take. And specifically, if you buy a 1-4 headliner, you don't sell it. If you pre-level on 2-3, your 2-5, so 2-3 is the round right before carousel. The round right after carousel, your shop will have a headliner, and it will be on level 5 odds. And that gives you much higher chances of a 2-cost. And 2-cost headliners on stage 2 are obviously really, really strong. So that's something you definitely want to consider. And then 6 is not really headliner related, just personal preference thing. But I'm really not going to be, I'm not really going to be taking stuff that hard commits me to a line. For example, there's like an augment that makes your big shots do explosion damage or something. But if you take that augment with the new like lower bag size changes, you can easily get contested and then not hit. And then it's very, very hard to play when contested this set. So I prefer just to stay open and try to pivot into other stuff. That's just me though. If you're fine going 8th some games because you get contested, go ahead. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. Yeah, just some tips. I upload stuff similar to this on my Twitter, like a lot, so there's probably some link somewhere where you can go and check it out. So this game, we went from Annie chosen, to Senna chosen, to Ari chosen, to Viego chosen, to Ziggs Chosen. I guess Headliner. I mean, I keep saying, I mean, Chosen's easier to say. Yeah, so we swapped it like 4 times. Often I swap it even more. Just keep in mind that concept of like constantly evolving your board, getting stronger over time, matching the tempo of the lobby. If everyone else in the lobby is doing this, you're going to be not having a good time. But yeah, just getting stronger throughout the stages, just win streaking. I don't know, I'm just yapping. But but yeah, it's very, very important, this set, to just be strong at all times, because it's super easy to be strong, I guess. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me for this guide. I'm not very good at these, I don't know, at least I don't think I'm very good at these, but hopefully someone got something out of this. I'll probably upload, I mean, I will upload a comp tier list a couple days after the set is live. I don't really like releasing comp guides before the set is live, because I feel like it's a little disingenuous to say what comps are good or not before you even see stats. Like, you're kind of just guessing. Like, no one really knows for sure. I mean, I guess it's fun to make predictions, but I don't want to bait people. So expect that video 2 to 3 days after the set's live, because I'll probably record it one day after, and then, yeah. Anyways, I've just been yapping a lot. Peace.